Hey everyone, a really warm welcome back to the channel, and the sun is shining! Yeah, the sun is out, and I think we need a bit of good news, don't we, at the moment? So back when I did the NEC vlog about innovations, or at least innovations that match the theme of this channel, which is, as you know, towing small caravans with a van at the moment, and the accessories that help to make that possible, I promised you 3 extended vlogs, each of which I take one of the things that were my favourites on show, or one of the things that I thought was particularly notable for one reason or another, and then go into a lot of detail for each of those individual products within that particular review. And this is one of those. And I want to kick off with this one, which is about the Quest Orion 300 awning, because it's so widely applicable to all sorts of different vehicles. So will suit camper van owners as well as pop-top caravan owners, or in fact taller caravan owners, taller van owners, as we will find out in just a minute. So what I want to do in this vlog is show you in much more detail the pros, and also pick out anything that I, as a person who's owned an Ariba for over 5 years now, and in fact I've owned the T6 VW for getting on for 2.5 already, crikey, time's flown by, anything that I think is not so good, so pick all of that sort of stuff out. And with these detailed reviews, I want to go into a lot more depth than is usually done, in the hope that it's helpful to anybody considering these sort of things. And certainly go into a lot more detail than you'd find on, say, a retailer's page or the manufacturers, and show you what these things actually look like. Now, what would be wonderful, and I will ask Quest if they'll lend me one of these, because I'd really like to do an in-depth test and see if the awning lives up to the hype. Anyway, I'll ask them. I don't know if it'll happen. This is a tiny channel, so probably won't happen, but you know, no harm in asking, is there? And that would be fantastic. And of course, as per all my vlogs, if that does happen, then it's obviously done on condition that I get to say whatever I want, because otherwise, you know, how can you trust what I'm saying? So that's the plan for the video. Let's nip back in time to the NEC, and I'll talk you through the footage that I picked up there, and talk to you in detail about all the features of this awning and the reason why I've picked it out as what I think is absolutely the best awning for anybody, actually, of 2022. So let's get to the footage. First off, these sidewalls, and you will have noticed these are not ordinary stitched sidewalls. So into this wall you can put an annex, and in fact you can put an annex on each side, which I think is absolutely perfect, because you can have quite a small caravan like an Ariba or one of the Trigano Silvers, or any of those sort of pop-top caravans, or even the smaller Bailey Discoveries. And then you can of course spread along the pitch. So for example, you can make the same sort of use of the pitch space as if you were towing a massive twin axle with an awning to match on the side. So that is absolutely brilliant, and I think particularly useful if you've got teens, or for example if you've got grandchildren that come along with you occasionally. You might not need all that awning space most of the time, but if you're able to pop an annex on each end, then you could store bikes in here, for example, or you could use it as a sleeping compartment. And these look reasonably sized annexes, which is great. I'm told, though I didn't see it at the NEC, that the normal side window panels stay in place, and then there's an additional zip for the annex itself, which would suggest if you did have bikes in there, for example, then you can just close the whole thing off and you don't have to see any of your family junk that's stored in that side compartment. But also, I'll put some still images in here, and you can see that there's a rear door available for that annex, which is really flexible, brilliant. If you've got bikes and you don't then have to drive them through the main awning, you can just put them straight in the annex from the outside. So the other fantastic thing about this is the removable rear tunnel. So this piece that joins the main awning to the van or the caravan or whatever vehicle you put at the back actually zips on, and we'll go around outside later and look at that connection, and you can see how that works. The other brilliant thing here is the way that the roof poles are a hybrid system. So it's single point inflation, and both the front loop and the back loop and that single central roof pole inflate all together. And then you've got aluminium poles for each edge, which keeps the whole thing beautifully taut and nice and firm. There are quite a lot of options on this awning, and the ground sheet is one of them. So it's a removable ground sheet, and there's Velcro sewn into the awning itself to receive that ground sheet. And that is really, really good, because a lot of campsites now are saying that you must only have breathable ground sheets. And of course, if you've got a sewn in ground sheet, then that's unlikely to be breathable. So you'll be breaking all the rules if you turn up with a normal drive-away awning with a sewn in ground sheet. But this is brilliant that it's removable, so you can use it if you're parked on a nasty, horrible, muddy patch, or if you're not, then you don't need to. And actually, quite often when we're on hard standing and we're only there for a few days, I prefer not to have a ground sheet, because if you're on gravel, it's all perfectly reasonable and sensible inside. So also notice there's a flat floor here, so there's no trip hazards, either coming in through the front or moving between the main section and the tunnel section, so that is brilliant. Of course, here's the rain-safe eyebrow across the front. Also makes it look rather stylish, I like that. And doors in both sides at the rear tunnel here. That seems obvious, but not all awnings actually have them. Not all driveways have them, so it's good to see doors on both sides, because it means the awning is then infinitely flexible. So if you end up pitching nose in or a different way around to normal, then there's no sort of problem getting into the awning itself from the main part of the campsite. And then, as I said, we're back around here with the rear tunnel. So here's how you remove that. So it's a zip, and it's got excellent sort of weather coverage. It's got this extra flap over the top, and that's elasticated so it doesn't flap up and down, keeps that nice and secure against rain. So as well as the weather cover here, there are clips to keep it permanently attached, and as I said, elastication, which keep it nice and far down. You'll also notice here the high level ventilation in the main part, and that's there regardless of whether you have the thing set up just on its own or with annexes or whatever. And you can swap this tunnel for a taller one or a shorter one, or whatever you need to fit the vehicle that you want. And the tunnels themselves are supplied in 3 different heights. So this one that we've been looking at today is the VW height, so suitable for vehicles between 180 and 210. So that's perfect for VW T6, 6.1 type vans, perfect for Ford Customs, perfect for Arribas, all that sort of thing. Perfect for I think Trigano's silver caravans. They have their rail height at 195, something like that. So perfect for all those vehicles. That's the low version. And if you go to the main product video, which I'll link to in the description below, you'll see this, whereby it's very easy to get this awning attached to the vehicle, because if you are not physically capable of lifting the entire heavy awning all the way up and threading it through the awning rail, you just detach this rear tunnel, thread that through the awning rail, just a couple of kilos, and then all you have to do is zip the main awning itself back on. Now obviously that's making the job twice as long as it has to be, but this is an awning made of thick, heavy materials, and so if you're not physically capable of lifting all of that through the awning rail, this is a brilliant workaround. So of course what nobody's advertised or talked about or shown pictures of is that actually you could use the main section as a sort of day tent or a sort of gazebo type thing, a freestanding thing on its own, because you've got those 2 arches and the main air pole that joins the 2 and the aluminium, so it's perfectly stable on its own as a day tent, which is brilliant. And the main body is 2 meters 10 deep, and of course the whole thing is 3 meters wide. And there's a door that separates the main part of the awning from the tunnel itself. So if you've got a little inner tent set up within the main section of the awning, rather than using an annex, then you can shut that off. You can also shut it off if you drive away from it, if you're attaching it to a camper van, or indeed if you're using it as a day tent. So perfect. And this is some lovely, lovely thick fabric. It's very modern, lovely colours, grey and black and so on there. So this is a polyester fabric, but it's set up to feel like cotton. So the best of both really in terms of how it handles water, and I think the hydrostatic head, so how waterproof is something like 10,000, which is very impressive indeed. And I suspect it breathes a little bit like polycotton, but talking to the lovely helpful chap on the stand, apparently we're not allowed to say it breathes like polycotton, because there are certain standards and expectations, which mean that is not a claim that the manufacturer can make, but it is absolutely wonderful fabric. And these side windows also fold down in a veranda style, and I didn't notice it when I was at the NEC, but looking at images and some of the materials afterwards, these have got mesh behind them as well, so you can have your plastic folded down and a wonderful flow of air going right the way through, because these are big side windows. So adding to the theme of robustness, there's some really strong PVC mud skirts at the bottom here, so they look really well made and nice and waterproof. Now we come to downsides, because of course what sort of a review is this if we do not have a downside section? And I can think of 3 things that I want to mention. So first off is weight, obviously. However, it's not as bad as I would have expected it to be, actually. According to the literature, this weighs 19.6 kilograms overall, and it says the pitching weight is 15, so I assume that means if you unzip all of the doors and the windows and things, the panels that are removable, well, probably the 2 side panels, those are the only removable ones, I think. However, as we saw earlier on, you can just unzip the back tunnel and put that on if you can't manage to lift 15 kilos into the awning rail. So that at least has a workaround, but of course that means you're effectively doing the job twice, because you've got to thread it into the rail and then also zip the thing back onto the tunnel. But at least it's workable if you can't bench, if you don't fancy bench pressing 15 kilos. So that's one thing. The second thing was, because the fabric is very thick, it did feel a little bit dark inside, and I think that's probably come out in the footage, which has looked a bit more grainy than it might usually do in a much lighter awning. So Isabella type awnings, for example, they use very light white panels in their tops, and as well as being taller, they've also got that more spacious colour on the top, so it just feels a bit more spacious inside. Some people would describe it as cosy, some people would say it was dark. So that is the second thing I wanted to mention. And the third one has escaped my mind completely. So obviously price, well, maybe it's 4 then. So it's fairly pricey. The main unit itself with the back tunnel comes in at, I think, £1,024 or £1,020, something like that. And then of course there's the annexes as well if you want those things. Those are optional extras. The ground sheet's an optional extra, so it's pretty pricey awning, but of course the balance of that is you just have to pay for a new tunnel if you change vehicle. So in theory it should be quite a long lasting awning that you can use for many years. And of course the other thing is sides ever so slightly. So this is a 3.10 meter deep awning. So as I've said in my awnings video, if you like to use a lot of camping in the forest pitches or a lot of camping and caravanning club pitches, those allow you to be a maximum of 5 meters wide. So you're all right with this awning on a VW Ford custom size van, transit van, that sort of size, which are about, well, my VW is 1.8 meters wide, and I think the Transit Custom is perhaps 1.9. So if you put a 3.10 meters awning on that, then you're fine within your 5 meters. This Ariba is a fraction over 2 meters, so technically we'd be just a little bit over on the grass. So perhaps we'd have to pull the tunnel back a little bit closer. But if you try and put it on a much wider vehicle, so you've got an 8-foot wide caravan, or you've got one of the very wide motorhomes, then you might struggle if you like to use a lot of those pitches with even 3.10 meters, which is very sensible size for this type of awning. All right, so that is it. I think this is an absolutely brilliant awning. It's brilliant because of the fabrics, the clear thought and usability that's gone into this. This has clearly been designed by somebody who's really thought about what they're doing. It's infinitely flexible and infinitely practical, which is not something you always see all the time. So I think this is absolutely brilliant, which is why I'm quite happy to make a video about it. As I said, non-sponsored. Hopefully Quest will lend me one to try out, because I would love to put this on long-term test and find out if my initial impressions live up to reality. So Quest, if you're watching, please get in contact. Anyway, that is all for today. I hope it was useful doing this sort of in-depth tour and showed you a lot of the features. Let me know in the comments below if it is useful to do this sort of in-depth video. Obviously it takes a lot of time to prepare and research and make sure I've got all the information correct and so on. So it'd be good to know if they were useful or not. And I will catch you in the next one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. See ya.